Hi everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. I'm excited because tomorrow I get to leave on a trip to Michigan, Northern Michigan University. I get to go up there and be the guest artist for their jazz festival. So they have asked me to learn a bunch of music, and I've had a good time practicing and listening and getting to know all the things that they asked me to sing and play while I'm there. Today I'd like to talk about how to go about putting together, crafting a vocal solo. I don't talk about my singing that much, mostly because I'm not a vocal coach. It's not my forte to teach you about your vocal folds or breathing or anything like that. I'm not very good at that. But one thing I feel qualified to teach about is how to put together your own vocal solo. So let me explain what I'm talking about. Mark from Michigan told me that his big band has been learning Ella Fitzgerald's arrangement of Accentuate The Positive. I kind of knew that song. I think it was on a commercial when I was growing up or something. And I had heard it. But I'd never spent any time on it or actually learned it. So I started listening to that Ella Fitzgerald recording. Let me show it to you just a tiny bit.
You got to accentuate the positive.
Isn't it nice? I love it. She sounds so good, and I've had a great time listening to her. Now, when I know that I have to perform a song like this, especially in front of a big band where I don't get the crutch of sitting at a piano and I've got to be standing up and people are a little more focused on me, I try to put a little bit of time and energy into how I'm going to perform the song. And the way that I'm going to explain is actually a little more detailed than what I probably really do in real life. But if anybody ever asks me how to do it, this is what I tell them. So the first thing I did was listen to Ella Fitzgerald singing. And the interesting thing about her recording is that she sang the verse. So a lot of these old songs have verses. Harold Arlen wrote the music, Johnny Mercer wrote the words, and it actually, it has a verse. So it goes something like this. Gather round me, everybody, gather round me, while I preach some. It's a weird lyric, isn't it? Feel a sermon coming on me. The topic will be sin, and that's what I'm against. If you want to hear my story, well, settle down and just sit tight while I start reviewing the attitude of doing right. That's how the verse goes. And then it gets into it. You got to accentuate the positive, like that, and it gets started. So this verse confused me. You know, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna pretend that I feel a sermon coming on. I'm asking people to gather around me while I preach some. It doesn't sound like Aimee. Maybe a little bit, but not really. So I looked it up and I wanted to see where this came from. There was another thing, two other things in the lyric that made me warily curious about these lyrics. The first thing was that, and I didn't do it just now, but it says, the topic will be sin, and this is what Ella Fitzgerald says. She says, and that's what I'm agin. Like against, but she says again, which is like short for against, right? Maybe people in the South speak that way. I wasn't sure why. So there's another part in the lyric later on. It says, have faith or pandemonium liable to walk upon the scene. Like I would say pandemonium's liable to walk upon the scene, but Ella Fitzgerald leaves off the S. So I wondered if Johnny Mercer did that. I assumed that he did, and I went and looked it up. It came from a musical called Here Come the Waves from 1944. And the crazy thing about it is that the song is actually performed in blackface. So I just went, ooh, I don't know about that. So I did a little more research. And there aren't very many singers who have recorded it with the verse. Now, Ella Fitzgerald recorded it with the verse in 1944. Dinah Washington recorded it in 1944 as well with the Lionel Hampton Band, and she sings the verse. Actually, she kind of speaks the verse. So that's interesting, but I couldn't really find anybody else who sang it, except for Ella Fitzgerald later on in her career, who did the verse and sang the lyric the way that Johnny Mercer wrote it. Now, I get that nobody's gonna know when I sing this song, like not one person in the audience is probably going to know all of this, but I know it. So I have to kind of decide, how I'm going to speak the lyric. I listened to a few other recordings. Aretha Franklin has a great one. So does Peggy Lee. And both of those women don't sing the verse, but they add the apostrophe in the questionable place. So I decided, that's probably the best way to do it. Now, Ella Fitzgerald, Dinah Washington, I think when they recorded it in 1944, it was just kind of commonplace for that kind of racism to happen, and they probably didn't think too much of it. Maybe they did. I don't know. I don't think Johnny Mercer was trying to be a racist. I think Johnny Mercer was very in touch with the South, and I think he was Baptist, so sermons were definitely a part of his upbringing, and I think he was just writing how he hears people talk, or how he heard people talk. And Ella Fitzgerald, she chose to sing it that way all through her career, apparently, and she's Ella Fitzgerald. She can do whatever she wants to do. But I am going to sing it like I would speak it if I were ever to talk about a sermon. So, the topic will be sin, and that's what I'm against. And pandemonium's liable to walk upon the scene. That is how I will sing it. Everything else, it's just kind of a unfortunate, terrible part of our history in America. It did happen, and it is sadly part of our musical history. So, it's a great song. I like the song. I think it's a song that has stood the test of time, and it's just too bad that, now I know where it came from. Okay, the first thing that I do is I listen to all the important recordings. So the ones that I've named, Dinah Washington, Ella Fitzgerald, Peggy Lee, Paul McCartney, I don't think that's an important recording, but he actually sings it pretty nicely. Aretha Franklin, really nice one. I also listened to Regina Carter. She has it on an album, and it sounds great too. Totally different, but really nice. So I listened to about 6 recordings of it, ad nauseum, repeat, just so I could get it under my skin and have a good feel for it. Now, the thing that I'm doing by listening to all of these recordings is picking up on the subtleties and the phrasing and the musical choices that these singers make to put their song together, to bring it to people. So you've already heard one of the things that I like. I really like that Ella Fitzgerald goes, "You got to accentuate the positive and elim." She makes a big break. Accent. It's cool. I think maybe it's one of the reasons this song sounds so good is because of that syncopation. So I'm definitely going to do that at the beginning of the verse. I'm going to copy Ella Fitzgerald. Here, let's listen to it again.
You got to accentuate the
Lots of space.
elim.
So that's really cool. I like that. So I practice it. You've got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. And that's sounding pretty good. Now, I like Peggy Lee a whole lot. She's one of my favorite singers of all time. So I listened to hers pretty carefully too. And she does a different thing. Let's hear it.
You got to accentuate the positive and elim.
It's pretty cool, right? Now, I'm not going to totally copy Peggy Lee, but it's fun to try. Elim. Right? She does that. I think she sounds so like in control when she does that and like she's the boss or something. That's cool about Peggy Lee. But the first one, you've got to accent. And then she takes a break right there, but she held on to accent. Accentuate the positive, elim. Something like that, right? I don't sing with that much vibrato, but I like how she held it. So my choice is to copy Ella for the first part. You got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, and latch on to the affirm. Now in that, I'm kind of copying Dinah Washington. Dinah Washington always goes up on the ends of her phrases. Perfect example is Destination Moon. Destination Moon, right? She always does that kind of a raise on her voice, and I really like that. So what did I do? Latch on to the affirmative, don't mess with Mr. In Between. Maybe I'll just try to do a little rise in there. Dinah Washington's recording doesn't really do that. I was hoping that it did, but it's really early on, and I don't know, like her style's just a little bit different back in 1944. But I was hoping she would do it, and I could hear her doing it in my mind, so I want to copy her a little bit. When I come back around to the second A section, it's going to be Peggy Lee. You got to spread joy into the maximum and bring gloom down to the minimum. And the other thing that Peggy Lee does is she really swings that line, down to the minimum, and like that. So she accents to the minimum, and like that. To minimum. And I love to pay attention to that kind of thing because Peggy Lee really swings, and I'd like to pick up on that. So that's another thing that I've noticed, and I'm gonna do it.
And bring gloom down to the minimum.
It's even a little different, isn't it? Down to the minimum, and oh, it's so swinging. Down, she hits that one hard on the and of 4, 3, 4, down, 2, then she hits 2 pretty darn hard. To the minimum, and she barely says the, ni. Yeah, she barely says the and ni. Down to the minimum, and can you hear it? Just barely. I love those kind of subtleties. And if I was teaching somebody about this, we'd probably write it out. We'd probably write the rhythm, and we'd probably write the accents and the places where we're gonna back off and attack, just to be, you know, real studious about it or whatever. But for me, I've listened to it a bunch of times. I'm gonna keep listening to it a bunch of times, and hopefully I'll just pick up on those things when I'm singing it. The bridge comes around and it goes, to the straight, my last remark. Now that's kind of Aimee Nolte. I love to slide into things, make things super slippery. So I'm taking a little from Ella, a little from Peggy, a little from Aimee. Jonah in the whale, Noah in the ark. That's also Aimee, I think, just kind of trying to do things real straight, real kind of mellow. Let's listen to Aretha on the next part, though. She does some really nice things on the bridge of this song.
What did they do?
Different key.
Just when everything looked so dark. Man.
Isn't that cool? Different key. Let's see. What did they do? Just when everything looked so dark. Man, they said you got to act. Something like that, right? She says man up on that high C. And it's cool. I like how she says man. I'm going to add that to my performance of it. You see what? See how I do it? It's, you know, I do the same thing when I transcribe solos sometimes with students. They'll say, I got to do Just Friends. And I'll say, all right, let's listen to Chet Baker play Just Friends. And I'll say, I want you to stop the music when you hear your favorite lick. So they listen and they say, oh, I really like that. I say, good, let's write it down. So it might be in bar 12, right? We write it down. It might take up 3 or 4 bars. I say, let's go listen to another recording of Just Friends. And then I say, what's your favorite part of that solo? We write it down. We take little pieces of what other people do, and then we put our own stuff in between. It's a really nice way to both learn from the masters and stay creative. That's it. That's my sermon. Thanks for gathering around me. I am hoping that later this week I'll be able to post this performance with the big band. We'll see how it goes, and if my Wi-Fi in my hotel is good or whatever. That can really slow me down on trips. But that's what it is. Take a little bit from some people. Take a little bit from yourself. Make a cognizant choice about it. Be deliberate and put it together. All of a sudden, it's not them anymore. It's you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music.